I stood in the far corner of the ballroom, clutching my small gift bag like it could protect me. Around me, 73 people laughed and moved like they were part of some perfect magazine shoot. Silk dresses swayed. Ties gleamed. Glasses clinked. Chandeliers caught the light and made it dance across their faces. I wasn't meant to be here. That thought ran on repeat in my mind. And there she was, my mother, moving from guest to guest like she owned the room. Her smile was practiced, her laughter measured, but it carried the weight of someone who always had the audience in her control. My father stood near the bar. A circle of men surrounded him, all of them polished and confident, wearing the kind of watches that shouted wealth. Military brass, I recognized some from my base visits. But my eyes kept finding him, the golden child Caleb. My brother, standing at the center, basking in admiration like he was untouchable. I remembered the last 3 months of ignored calls. The seating chart that completely omitted me until someone, some poor soul, had reminded him I existed. And yet tonight he finally noticed. "Celine," he said, raising his glass with a mock surprise that was loud enough to draw a few glances. Didn't know they let freelancers in with the real pros. A few polite chuckles. I forced a thin smile, tucking my hair behind my ear. "Guess not everyone can serve their country," he added, sipping his drink. I tilted my head. "And not everyone has to be funded by someone else's trust fund to look impressive," I said quietly, almost too soft for the crowd. But it landed. The air shifted. Caleb's grin faltered. And then I felt it before I saw it, my father's presence. Heavy. Heated. His hand gripped my upper arm. "What did you just say?" His voice was low and dangerous. I opened my mouth, but he didn't wait. The slap hit my cheek like a rifle shot. Conversations froze. Forks hovered in midair. Before I could even gather myself, his hand was in my hair, yanking me backward. My heels slipped on the polished marble. Pain shot through my scalp. I gasped, fighting for breath, for balance, for mercy. And in that moment, I heard her. The sound of my mother laughing. Not shocked, not horrified, just laughing. Like this was entertainment. Applause followed. One voice. "Caleb's." "You had it coming," he said, clapping as if he was proud. No one moved. Not one of the 73 people. They watched. Whispered. But did nothing. Outside, the air was cooler, quieter. My father shoved me again and let go. I stumbled, caught myself against a stone column, and tried to straighten. My lip bled. My scalp throbbed. My chest ached. Not from the physical pain, but the weight of shame that seemed to bloom endlessly. I didn't look back. I walked to my car, heels clicking against the concrete. Each step heavier than the last. My hands were shaking as I gripped the steering wheel with one hand, pressing a tissue to my lip with the other. Blood seeped through. Streetlights blurred past like witnesses too afraid to speak. This wasn't new. I had been shoved, belittled, told I was lucky to eat. My father had always perfected the art of weaponizing disappointment. My mother, cruelty disguised as refinement. And Caleb, he made a career out of ignoring me until it suited him. When I was 8, I brought home a drawing I loved. My mother told me not to pin it on the fridge, it would clutter the kitchen. At 16, I was accepted into an art program. My father asked if it was real school, or just doodling with tuition. At 25, I called Caleb on my birthday. No answer. Later, I saw photos of him celebrating with my parents on a rooftop. Tonight wasn't just a betrayal. It was a summary of years. I parked at my apartment, sat for a moment, staring at the building. My hand still shook. My dress torn at the shoulder where he had grabbed. I took a breath. Then another. I turned on the bathroom light and faced myself in the mirror. Swollen lip. Bruised cheek. Tangled hair. My reflection stared back. Unflinching. "It ends tonight," I whispered. I pulled out my phone. Scrolling past old contacts, I found her, Dana. She had always been sharp, the one who studied contracts for fun, argued with professors, and won. I hit call. "Celine," she answered groggy. "It's me. I need help," I said. There was a pause. Then, "Talk to me," she said. And I did. The next morning, I met Dana at a quiet coffee shop on East Monroe. The kind of place where no one notices who you are, and that was exactly what I needed. She didn't waste time on small talk. Her eyes, sharp and direct, scanned me like she was already solving a puzzle. I slid the folder across the table. "Everything," I said. "From the moment I walked into the ballroom to the moment I slammed my car door." Dana nodded, opening it with practiced precision. No flinching. No hesitation. She looked at the documents, the photos, the scattered notes, and then at me. "We document everything," she said simply. That afternoon, I knocked on the door 2 floors down. Rick Dano opened it before I could knock twice. He had been my landlord for 3 years, the kind of man who salted sidewalks before a freeze and never questioned a noise unless it sounded dangerous. He used to be a cop, now a freelance security consultant with a talent for finding what others wanted hidden. I need your help, I said, handing him the slip Dana had given me. Names, dates, a bank account I barely remembered. Rick scanned it carefully. Off, he said slowly. Already, I can tell you none of this is clean. That night, I sat on my bed, lights off, folder in my lap. My arms bore faint bruises from the ballroom incident. My phone buzzed. Dana. Start saving everything. This won't stay private. I opened a new album and named it Proof. Every image, every document, every note. 2 days later, Rick came to my apartment with a manila folder heavy with secrets. He laid out bank statements, wire transfers, emails with clipped subjects like internal shift and fund transfer authorization. At first, the numbers meant nothing to me. Then I saw it, the account ID. Mine. Your father's name appears here, Rick pointed out, tapping the second page. And here again as trustee. The dates lined up perfectly with Caleb's promotions, the new car my mother suddenly drove, the golf outings at country clubs I had never even entered. I picked up a set of withdrawal documents spanning 3 years. My stomach twisted. This money, my education, my future, it had been used to grease the wheels of their lives. Rick muttered, promotion boards, donations to foundations, even a publicist, all under your trust. Then a printed email. Subject line, ensure Caleb stands out. Short, cold, clear. My father was very persuasive. Dana arrived an hour later. She skimmed through the documents, silent intensity etched on her face. This isn't just misuse, she said finally. It's fraud. Maybe even laundering. Civil or criminal. Maybe both. I nodded slowly. My hands were cold. The slap from my father had faded into a dull ache. But this was something else. They hadn't just hurt me, they had spent me. Every resource, every opportunity, taken for their own gain. I want it on the record, I said. Voice low. Dana didn't hesitate. Then we start with exposure, she said. And I knew exactly who I had to call next. The invitation came through a text from my mother. Let's talk this through like family. Come by tomorrow at 3. No apology. No explanation. Just the familiar tone, soft enough to seem reasonable, sharp enough to cut if I didn't comply. You're not going alone, Dana said when I told her. But I needed to. I needed to see how far they would go, now that they knew I wasn't silent. Their house looked the same, too clean, too perfect. Lemon polish, floral candles. Time warped as I stepped in. Photos lined the hallway, Caleb at his first medal ceremony. I was not in any of the frames. My mother met me with a thin smile, pastel cardigan draped perfectly. Celine, she said, as if my name alone could give her power. Let's get to the heart of this. My father sat in the formal living room, neat stack of papers on the coffee table. Caleb was there, scrolling on his phone, legs crossed like nothing had happened. We want to move forward, my mother said sweetly. My father added, pushing the papers toward me. An NDA, a waiver of legal claims, and a check just visible enough to remind me what silence was worth. That's your idea of resolving this? I asked. You've made your point, my father said, voice hardening. Let's not drag this out. Then I saw it. A small black recorder, poorly hidden near the lamp base. I almost laughed. They wanted to buy me off, and trap me at the same time. You think this is about money? I whispered. It never was. My father's face darkened. Don't play the victim. I'm not playing anything, I said. I came here to give you a chance. You had it. Now it's gone. My mother's breath caught. Caleb muttered something under his breath. I didn't stay to hear it. I walked out, already dialing Jenna, who waited at a small cafe near the courthouse. Neutral ground, quiet, safe for what we were about to do. She looked different than college days, tired, sharper, but still fast, still hungry. She slid into the seat across from me, glanced at the folder I'd brought. This is everything? She asked. I nodded. Videos, trust fund transfers. The rest with Dana. She didn't ask why. She just flipped through the pages, her face unreadable. When she reached Caleb's promotion being funded through my trust, she let out a low whistle. They are not going to walk away from this, she said. That's the point. By the time I left the cafe, Dana had released a legal statement, formal, precise, cold as steel. No exaggeration, no emotion, just facts. Coercion, financial abuse, assault. Jenna's article dropped 3 hours later. Headline: Local businessman caught on camera. Assaulting daughter, trust fund misuse. Embedded at the top: the ballroom footage, my father's hand on my face, Caleb clapping, my mother laughing. It went viral before I could even blink. 3 clients pulled out of my father's firm. Caleb was placed on administrative leave. I sat on the edge of my bed, blanket draped around me like armor, coffee in hand, watching them crumble, not triumphant, just still. The courtroom smelled cold, sterile, a place where no one felt safe hiding behind power or money. My father sat at the plaintiff's table, a suit more expensive than my rent, his posture stiff. Caleb beside him, pale, trying to look composed. My mother avoided eye contact entirely. Dana stood like she had been born for this. She opened with the bank records, precise, undeniable. Every transfer from my trust into shell accounts. Every document pointing to Caleb's career perks, funded by what was mine. Then came the promotional invoices. The voice recordings Rick helped recover. Casual conversations where my father bragged about redirecting family assets. The opposing counsel tried to object, but Dana moved like a surgeon. Every fact had a backup. Every backup had a signature. The evidence wasn't just clear, it was undeniable. When it was my turn, I stepped forward. My hand rose. My voice didn't shake. I told them everything I remembered. Not just the slap, not just the dragging across the ballroom floor, but the years before. The insults, the erasure, the money stolen while I had no idea. I said they didn't just silence me. They spent me. The judge listened carefully. When I finished, he looked directly at my father. This court finds reasonable cause to open further investigation into possible criminal misuse of trust funds. Civil proceedings will be paused pending that review. Outside, the press swarmed. Flashes. Microphones. Voices calling my name. I stood there, not as their daughter, not as the girl dragged across marble, but as myself. This isn't revenge, I said to no one in particular. This is justice. And for the first time, I felt the weight of those words sink in. 2 days later, the full video went live. No edits. No slow motion. No cuts to protect reputations. Just truth. My father's hand across my face. Caleb clapping. My mother laughing. It spread faster than any press release could. The expressions of the guests, the silence of the room. It spoke louder than words. By noon, Caleb released a statement. He was resigning, citing mental health challenges. Sponsors withdrew support from my father's firm, one by one. The family's carefully built image was crumbling. I watched it unfold from my apartment, blanket around my shoulders like armor, coffee in hand. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt still. Not peaceful, not angry. Just still. Later that night, I opened my dresser drawer. My necklace lay tangled, a small silver circle etched with a wave pattern. My mother had ripped it from my neck the night of the party. I fastened it around me. It didn't feel like reclaiming the past, it felt like anchoring the present. The next day, I stepped onto a stage. Not a courtroom. Not a press conference. Just a room full of women and a few men who understood what it meant to break quietly. I hadn't planned to speak. But when they offered me the microphone, my legs moved before my mind could hesitate. I didn't tell everything. Just enough. I spoke about walking into a party and leaving with a bruised face, about the line between silence and surrender, about how one phone call hadn't changed my life, but the choices I made afterward had. I used to think boundaries were walls, I said. Now I know they are doors. You just have to be the one to lock them. Applause came gently. Not demanding performance, but holding space. People stopped me afterward, some to hug, some to whisper their own stories. I didn't need to explain. Most of them already understood. Outside, the air was cooler than I expected. I pulled my coat tighter and checked my phone. A new message blinked. Unknown number. Thank you. Because of you. I stared at it, then slipped the phone into my pocket. And kept walking.